Day 47. The mortars began at 2 o'clock. They came in sustained waves, striking the western and central sectors of the valley repeatedly. For nearly 40 minutes the explosions overlapped. The valley floor flickered with flashes in the dark. The Royal Lao artillery answered, but the response sounded fractured again. Some guns fired hard, and others did not answer at all. The silence of some of the Royal Lao artillery guns is very concerning. Before dawn, heavy automatic fire erupted again from the western perimeter. This time it carried longer, nearly an hour of intermittent but intense exchange. It sounded like a Royal Lao line was under strain. At first light, I saw clear signs of damage along the western trench system. Sections appeared flattened or collapsed. By mid-morning, our ridge was struck with the heaviest concentration yet. Mortars landed in rapid succession across our slope, including one direct hit on our secondary trench. The blast killed one of my men instantly and wounded another. Earth and splinters filled the air so thick that for a moment I could not see beyond a few meters. Then the enemy assault followed immediately. Multiple North Vietnamese elements advanced at once from forward scrapes, using suppressive fire and mortar cover. They climbed aggressively this time. The distance closed to within 10 meters at one point, that I could see their faces clearly through smoke and branches. We fired continuously. The fight lasted longer than any previous day, nearly 30 minutes of close exchange. I saw at least 2 enemy soldiers fell on the slope before being dragged back, while other enemy hugged ground and returned fire upward. Eventually, they withdrew again, but not as far as before. Their forward scrapes remained dangerously close. We lost 2 men today, one killed outright by mortar impact, and the other one died from wounds sustained during the assault, while another is wounded badly. We have been moving back and forth on this ridge to avoid enemy mortars, but now that the enemy is charging in our line, we must stand our ground now. Maneuvering out of position to avoid mortars will only give the enemy easy weak point to break through to us. We must hold the line now, whether I like it or not. In the afternoon, enemy recoilless rifle fire struck the Royal Lao artillery sector again. I saw only a brief return fire from the valley guns, while several Royal Lao artillery positions appear silent now. What makes the situation even worse is the fact that our food is nearly at minimum survival now. For as bad as today was, there was still no friendly aircraft above. Today they applied more pressure to see if we break. We did not break, but the cost is rising. Day 48. At 1:10 the mortars began again, but this time they struck in overlapping patterns that felt coordinated across the entire valley. Western perimeter, center, and the Royal Lao artillery sector. Then lower slopes of multiple ridges, including ours. The barrage lasted longer than any previous night. For nearly an hour, the valley flashed in the dark. The Royal Lao artillery answered at first, but the rhythm was broken. I counted perhaps half the guns I once heard. Some positions that once thundered daily have now fallen silent. Before dawn, heavy automatic fire erupted again along the western side of the valley. This time it did not taper quickly. It rolled continuously, punctuated by heavier bursts. It sounded like ground being contested. At first light, smoke drifted thick from that sector. I saw one section of trench no longer occupied. Men moved rearward from it, not in panic, but abandoning ground. It was the first visible loss of ground below the valley. By mid-morning, our ridge was hit with intense bracketing. Mortar rounds struck both our primary and fallback positions within minutes. One impact collapsed part of our trench wall. No immediate fatalities, but 2 men were wounded by fragments. Then the North Vietnamese came again. This assault was even more aggressive than yesterday. Multiple enemy elements advanced under continuous suppressive fire, using fallen timber and shallow depressions to close distance. At one point, they reached within perhaps 5 to 8 meters of our lower trench line. We engaged at near point-blank range, throwing grenades down at them. The exchange was chaotic. I saw one enemy soldier fall within clear view and not move. Another attempted to crawl forward before being pulled back by his comrades. They withdrew after nearly 40 minutes, but this time their forward position did not retreat fully. They remained extremely close. We lost another man today, shot through the chest during the close exchange, along with one more seriously wounded. The wounded man from earlier days no longer speaks much anymore, and now his fever had gotten worsens. In the afternoon, enemy recoilless rifle fire struck near the Royal Lao artillery sector again. I saw almost no significant return fire. Several Royal Lao artillery pits now appear abandoned or destroyed. The valley still holds, but the western side looks unstable. Food is nearly gone, and again no friendly aircraft came today due to the cloudy cover that remains heavy and low. The Royal Lao still hold the valley floor, but parts of the perimeter are thinning. We still hold this ridge, but barely beyond arm's reach. The North Vietnamese are pushing hard until something gives, and something, somewhere, is beginning to give. We now stand at 4 dead and 6 wounded soldiers, and, as the sun set, I sit alone with thousands of thoughts running through my brain as I stare away at the dirt on the ground by my boots. Day 49. At midnight, the mortars began, sustained and overlapping fire hitting the western perimeter first, then center, then the Royal Lao artillery sector, then lower slopes of multiple ridges, including ours. The barrage lasted nearly an hour. The Royal Lao artillery answered, but I counted fewer artillery guns firing than any day before. Before dawn, heavy automatic fire erupted along the western valley again. This time it did not taper off quickly. It rolled steadily, punctuated by deeper detonations. It sounded like ground being contested and not regained. At first light, smoke rose heavily from that sector. I could see another Royal Lao section of trench, completely abandoned. By mid-morning, our ridge was struck hard again. Mortars bracketed our primary trench. One round landed directly on the edge of our forward position, collapsing part of the wall and killing another one of my men instantly. 2 others were thrown back by the blast. Then the assault came immediately after the barrage, more aggressive than even yesterday. Multiple enemy elements advanced simultaneously from 2 directions. They climbed rapidly, closing to within a few meters again. For several moments the fighting was nearly hand-to-hand range, grenades thrown uphill and down. We managed to hold, barely. One of my squad leaders was shot through the abdomen and died within minutes. Another man was struck in the neck and did not survive. The enemy withdrew again, but slower this time. They dragged their wounded back under covering fire. They are pressing harder each day, and we are now down significantly. Counting after the assault, we are now down 8 men dead and 7 wounded. In the afternoon, enemy recoilless rifle fire struck the Royal Lao artillery sector again. I saw almost no meaningful return fire back by the Royal Lao. At least 2 Royal Lao artillery positions appear permanently silent now. Today it was attrition, and we still hold this ridge. The casualties of my men have been hitting me hard, especially after the fighting today. I remain strong in front of the men as I bottle up my frustration and anger deep inside. I find myself once again sitting alone as the sun set with thousands of thoughts running through my brain again. Day 50. The mortars began before midnight and did not pause for nearly an hour. A deliberate, sustained barrage that struck the western valley first again, then rolled inward toward the center and the Royal Lao artillery pits. The Royal Lao guns answered, but several Royal Lao artillery positions are now silent. Before dawn, heavy automatic fire erupted from the western perimeter again. This time it sounded closer, deeper inside the valley than before. The exchange lasted long enough that I could not distinguish individual bursts anymore, only continuous noise. At first light, I saw it clearly. Another Royal Lao section of the western trench line is gone, not damaged, but gone. Royal Lao soldiers were moving rearward from that sector in small groups. Some running, some stumbling, no counterattack visible. The Royal Lao line is bent. In mid-morning, our ridge was struck again with accurate bracketing. Mortar rounds landed in rapid sequence across our entire contour. One impacted directly inside our primary trench. The blast killed another one of my men instantly and wounded another severely. Then the North Vietnamese came immediately after again. The assault was heavier than any previous day. At least 3 elements advanced simultaneously under continuous suppression. They did not pause halfway up the slope this time. They pushed hard, using grenades and short rushes. The fighting closed to within a few meters again. We held for nearly 30 minutes, firing continuously, shifting positions within the trench as sections collapsed. I saw 2 enemy soldiers fall and remain motionless, as others enemy withdrew, dragging their wounded. They pulled back again, but not far. Their forward scrapes are almost touching ours. We lost 2 men today, the one from the direct mortar impact, the other from rifle fire during the assault, and 2 more are wounded seriously. After the fight, I counted who remains, as our trench feels empty now. In the afternoon, recoilless rifle fire struck the Royal Lao artillery sector again. I saw only a single Royal Lao artillery piece fire in return, and again no friendly aircraft appeared. That angers me more than anything, like where the fuck is the air support? So many thoughts running through my brain, like did they forgot we are here? What the fuck are they doing, and why isn't the Royal Lao commander down below the valley demanding for air support, regardless of how bad the weather is? So much anger inside me right now, but as the adrenaline subsided my rational thinking came back to me. I need to do my duty. I can't let the men see me break down right now. The outer shell of Nam Bac is cracking, and I do not believe we have many days left here. Unless someone somewhere in the high-up step it up, we're going to lose this valley. Day 51. The mortars began shortly after midnight and rolled almost continuously for nearly an hour. The Royal Lao guns answered, but I counted perhaps only 3 artillery firing now. Before dawn, heavy automatic fire erupted again, louder and closer than any previous night, and at first light, the change was unmistakable. The Royal Lao western perimeter has collapsed. Smoke rose from positions that were once firm. I saw groups of Royal Lao soldiers moving rearward in disorder, not organized, running, some without helmets and some without rifles. The Royal Lao line has broken. By mid-morning, like every day now, our ridge was hit with another intense bracketing barrage. Mortar rounds landed across our trench line within seconds of each other. One collapsed part of our eastern position completely. A wounded man who could not move was buried under earth. We dug him out, but he did not survive. Then the North Vietnamese came again. This assault was even heavier, with multiple enemy elements advanced from the 2 directions they had been charging from. Suppression fire was constant, and, as they got close enough, grenades landed inside our trench. Another fight closed a near hand-to-hand distance. We held once again, but barely. We fired until barrels were too hot to touch. I saw at least 2 enemy soldiers fall within a few meters of our line. After nearly 40 minutes, they withdrew again, but this time they did not fully retreat to earlier positions, and they remained dangerously close. We lost 3 men today, 2 during the mortar barrage, and 1 during the assault, with several more wounded. We have now lost 14 men and 8 wounded, as 4 are so severely wounded that they're not combat ineffective. Our number is small now. In the afternoon, recoilless rifle fire struck the Royal Lao artillery sector again. I saw almost no return fire from the valley artillery. Today, the Royal Lao western side has collapsed, gun silent, as Royal Lao soldiers below are moving rearward in disorder. We still hold this ridge, but the Royal Lao Valley beneath us is breaking, and once the valley floor breaks fully, the ridges will not hold alone. I believe the end is very near now. I no longer watch at the sky anymore for friendly aircraft anymore. I have accepted the fact that they're never going to come. We are on our own. Day 52. There was no pattern to the night anymore. The mortars began shortly after midnight and rolled almost without pause. The barrage lasted nearly an hour before easing, but even then it did not fully stop. Rounds continued to fall intermittently across sectors, keeping everyone low. The Royal Lao guns answered but weak. I counted only perhaps 2 batteries firing now. Before dawn, heavy automatic fire erupted again, louder and deeper inside the valley than before. At first light, groups of Royal Lao soldiers were withdrawing in visible disorder. I see them running, some crouched low and move quickly. I saw at least 1 machine gun left unmanned. The western perimeter is gone. In mid-morning, our ridge was hit with the most violent bracketing yet. Mortar rounds struck in rapid succession across our entire contour again. 1 landed directly inside what remains of our primary trench. The blast killed another one of my men instantly again and wounded another severely. Then once again the North Vietnamese came again, a full push. Multiple enemy elements advanced simultaneously from both flanks of our ridge now. That was different. They are now advancing on our flanks now, with constant suppression fire. We fired until ammunition ran low. The fighting closed to within arm's reach in places. 1 enemy soldier reached the lip of our trench before being shot at point-blank range. They pressed harder than any previous day. Our forward position was critical of being overrun, so I gave the order to fall back to our secondary line. We moved in bounds, dragging wounded where possible. 2 men were left behind, either dead or unable to move. We could not reach them under fire. By midday, the enemy occupied our original trench line, and we now hold a reduced position farther west along the ridge. We lost at least 3 men in the assault, 2 killed outright, and 1 missing during the withdrawal. In the afternoon, recoilless rifle fire struck near the artillery sector again. I saw no significant return fire from the Royal Lao artillery guns. The Royal Lao no longer fully hold the valley, and we no longer fully hold the ridge. The siege is over, this is collapse beginning, and tomorrow may decide whether we survive at all. As the sun set, I thought about the men we've lost so far, 17 in total. As the sun set, I set out on my own, trying to sneak back into our front trench to look for my missing soldier. But I was never able to get close enough and return back to my men. I never told my men, and they never knew what I did. Day 53. The mortars began at midnight and did not break into waves. They fell continuously, Western Valley, Center, Royal Lao Artillery Sector, and the ridges. For nearly 90 minutes, the valley was nothing but fire and concussion. The Royal Lao guns answered briefly at the beginning. Then silence spread across the valley. One by one, the Royal Lao artillery guns stopped answering. Before dawn, automatic fire erupted across multiple sectors simultaneously. The sound carried from inside the valley itself. At first light, the truth was visible. The valley floor was in motion. Groups of Royal Lao soldiers moved eastward in disorder. Some ran, some dragged equipment. I saw abandoned positions, machine guns unmanned, and trenches empty. The center is breaking. In mid-morning, our reduced position on the ridge was struck again. Mortars landed along our fallback line. 1 round killed another one of my men instantly, with 1 wounded and 1 more severely. Then the North Vietnamese came up the slope in force. Multiple enemy elements advanced simultaneously, supported by continuous suppression and grenades. They no longer stopped at intermediate cover. They climbed directly into our reduced line. The fighting closed immediately. Within seconds, they were at the lip of our trench, and we fired at near contact range. One of my remaining squad leaders was shot through the chest and fell beside me. Another man was struck by grenades fragments and did not rise. We just couldn't hold anymore with our ammunition nearly gone. So, I gave the order to withdraw. We broke contact in small groups, moving along the ridgeline eastward, dragging 1 wounded man who could still be moved. 2 others were left behind, either dead or unable to rise under fire. By midday, the enemy occupied our entire ridge. I stared back behind us down at the valley and saw the valley floor in chaos. Royal Lao soldiers moved without formation. Some dropped equipment to run faster. I saw abandoned artillery pieces, now silent and left in place. The battle for Nam Bac is no longer a siege, it's a rout. Today, that valley has fallen. What remains of my platoon, a handful of men, is moving east through broken terrain, avoiding roads, and avoiding open ground. We are escaping. Nam Bac is lost. Day 54. There is no valley to hold anymore. We moved through the night along the eastern ridgeline, avoiding open ground and roads. The sound behind us did not fade, they followed. Sporadic gunfire and occasional explosions. Shouted commands carried faintly by wind. The battle did not end. It broke apart. Before dawn, we paused in a narrow fold of terrain thick with brush. I counted who remained. Only 8 of us remain out of the 29 when we first landed on the ridge. Some wounded, and some barely able to stand. We heard movement below before first light. It was scattered groups of Royal Lao soldiers moving east as we were. No formation, no coordination, some without weapons. Some carrying wounded on makeshift litters. The Royal Army that once filled the valley is now fragments. At 7 o'clock, mortar fire landed behind us along the ridge we abandoned yesterday. The enemy is sweeping forward, consolidating. By mid-morning, we reached a secondary ridgeline overlooking what had once been the western entrance to the valley. Smoke rose steadily and could see abandoned artillery pieces. Artillery guns that thundered for weeks are now silent forever. Around noon, we encountered another Hmong SGU element retreating from a neighboring ridge. Their numbers were similar to ours, reduced, exhausted, but intact enough to move, and we joined them quietly. No speeches, no anger, just survival. By afternoon, we were far enough east that the valley floor was no longer visible. The sounds behind us grew distant, then scattered, then faint. The Battle of Nam Bac is over. We did not surrender. We did not break in panic, but we could not hold what could not be held. 54 days ago, we arrived to support a position that seemed bold and confident. Over time, we watched it tighten, weaken, fracture, and finally give way. We lost many comrades, and we left them behind on that ridge without any proper burial. And that's what hurts more than anything. Now what remains of my platoon, we walk east now, thinner and quieter than when we arrived. It took us 11 days to reach Long Tiang. We moved in fragments, linking with other Hmong SGU survivors along ridgelines and narrow jungle paths. Some of the men did not make it. Fever took one, another disappeared during a night crossing and never rejoined. When we finally reached Long Tiang, I reported our numbers. Only 8 from my platoon, remaining out of the original 29. No one asked for explanations, and no one blamed us. The officers already knew. The news of Nam Bac had reached Long Tiang before we did. Entire Royal Lao battalions had disintegrated, artillery abandoned, and units scattered. The fall of Nam Bac is spoken of quietly here. I saw new Hmong recruits drilling today, young faces with determination. The war did not end at Nam Bac, it shifted. General Vang Pao has ordered reorganization. Units are being rebuilt. Nam Bac cost us dearly. 18 confirmed dead for my platoon, 3 missing, and many wounded.